Good evening, boys and girls. This is Mr. S here, and I would like to read you a story this evening. I hope you enjoyed your snow day. It's been a very interesting winter with all the snow that we've gotten, but I hope you've enjoyed having some free time and to be able to play and enjoy family time and games and sledding, being out in the snow, maybe reading some books and doing some fun things. That's all I remember when I was in elementary school, and I always loved those times. So I wanted to read you a story called Snowflake Bentley, and I know that some of you have probably heard this story before. Maybe it was read to you in kindergarten or first grade. If not, it's a great book if this is the first time. I'm using something on my computer called Snagit, and I'm using it. It's a 15-day free trial. It's like a screen capture. It's where I can talk to my computer and you can see what I'm looking at in my computer on my laptop right now. And so I have downloaded a copy of Snowflake Bentley from the fourth grade treasures book. This is a story that I really like to um, read with my fourth grade students over the past few years, and it's a story I love to read to you now. Um, and Snowflake Bentley is a story about, this is kind of like a historical fiction book. They say it's a biography, and I guess we could say it's a biography, but of course the pictures here are illustrations. They're not photographs. We've been talking about text features because they are kind of been recreated in the imagination of an artist. But this ultimately is a biography, which, if you can see here with I've got my cursor. A biography is a story about the life of a real person written by someone else. And we would use this in fourth grade, and I would use it with you now to think about what the main idea of the story is and the details. But I really want you just to enjoy the story as I read it to you. This is a Caldecott award-winning book. That means for that year that it was made, it was the best illustrated book. So enjoy the pictures as I read the story to you. The title of this book is Snowflake Bentley, and it's by Jacqueline Briggs Martin. She's the author of the words that I'll be reading, and the pictures, the illustrations here that you'll be seeing were written by Mary Azarian. Okay, here we go. And if I have to go back and forth a little, you know how it is in the classroom. Sometimes the pages don't load up. So it says, in the days when farmers worked with ox and sled and cut the dark with lantern light, there lived a boy who loved snow more than anything else in the world. Willie Bentley's happiest days were snowstorm days. Maybe yours too. He watched snowflakes fall on his mittens, on the dried grass of Vermont farm fields, on the dark metal handle of the barn door. He said snow was as beautiful as butterflies or apple blossoms. And right here, I'm going to read these. These are captions here. And captions, as we remember, are words and text that describe and explain the pictures that they're beside. And it says that Wilson Bentley was born on February 9th, 1865, which I think is cool. I can make a connection to that because I was born on February 3rd, so he's born only 6 days away from me, on a farm in Jericho, Vermont, between Lake Champlain and Mount Mansfield, in the heart of the snow belt, where the annual snowfall is about 120 inches. Wow, that's amazing. We know that that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. So this is 10 feet. Okay, they got 10 feet of snow each winter. So far this winter, we've probably gotten about 12 inches, just 1 foot. They got 10 times that amount. He could net butterflies and show them to his oldest brother Charlie. He could pick apple blossoms and take them to his mother, but he could not share snowflakes because he could not save them. This caption says Willie's mother was his teacher until he was 14 years old. He attended school for only a few years. She had a set of encyclopedias, Willie said. I read them all. That's so cool how he's so excited to learn. Back then, they didn't have They weren't able to look up information online on the computer. They had to look into books. And you can see that they didn't have the sort of public schools that we do now. So we have a lot to be thankful for. But it's so cool how Willie Bentley was so excited to learn. When his mother gave him an old microscope, he used it to look at flowers, raindrops, and blades of grass. Best of all, he used it to look at snow. While other children built forts and pelted snowballs at roosting crows, Willie was catching single snowflakes. Day after stormy day, he studied the icy crystals. He was using his observation skills in science to notice things, and that's how all great science and scientists begin. From his boyhood on, he studied all forms of moisture. He kept a record of the weather and did many experiments with raindrops. I wonder how many of you have who keep track of the weather. Maybe you have a weather journal. That'd be kind of cool. Their intricate patterns were even more beautiful than he had imagined. He expected to find whole flakes that were the same, that were copies of each other's, but he never did. Willie decided he must find a way to save snowflakes so others could see their wonderful designs. For 3 winters, he tried drawing snow crystals. They always melted before he could finish. And this caption says he learned that most crystals had 6 branches, though a few had 3. For each snowflake, the 6 branches were alike. I found that snowflakes were masterpieces of design, he said. No one design was ever repeated. How cool is that? He was the one who discovered that snowflakes, there's no 2 snowflakes alike, kind of like you in fingerprints and such. I don't know. Are fingerprints? That's an interesting question. Are fingerprints like snowflakes? There are no 2 alike in the world. Anyhow, he discovered from his observational science studies that no design was ever repeated. Kind of like you. There's no one else like you out there. When a snowflake melted, just that much beauty was gone without leaving any record behind. Starting at age 15, he drew 100 snow crystals each winter for 3 winters. That's so cool how science and art come together here. When he was 16, Willie read of a camera with its own microscope. If I had that camera, I could photograph snowflakes, he told his mother. Willie's mother knew he could not be happy until he could share what he had seen. Fussing with snow is just foolishness, his father said. Still, he loved his son. And here the caption says, the camera made images on large glass negatives. Its microscope could magnify a tiny crystal from 64 to 3,600 times its actual size. How cool is that? When Willie was 17, his parents spent their savings and bought the camera. So in the end, it's really neat how his mother and father supported his love of learning. That's really special. It was taller than a newborn calf, and it cost as much as his father's herd of 10 cows. Willie was sure it was the best of all cameras. Even so, his first pictures were failures. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you start something and it doesn't always work out the way you want it, but you got to keep going. No better than shadows, yet he would not quit. Mistake by mistake, snowflake by snowflake, Willie worked through every storm. Winter ended, the snow melted, and he had no good pictures. He waited for another season of snow. One day, in the second winter, he tried a new experiment. And it worked! Willie had figured out how to photograph snowflakes. Now everyone can see the great beauty in a tiny crystal, he said. This caption says, Willie's experiment. He used a very small lens opening, which let only a little light reach the negative, but he kept the lens open for several seconds, up to a minute and a half. He learned, too, that he could make the snow crystal show up more clearly by using a sharp knife to cut away all the dark parts of the negative crystals. Let me repeat that. Parts of the negative around the crystals. This etching meant extra hours of work for each photograph, but Willie didn't mind. By the way, I think Mr. S here is some of the this text here is a caption, but I think that on this page here it would be better described as a text box. This is a text feature where it just gives you extra information about what's going on in the story here. So sometimes captions and text boxes are a little tricky. A caption is more directly related to the picture, whereas a text box kind of just gives you extra information about what you may read or see on a page. But in those days, no one cared. Neighbors laughed at the idea of photographing snow. Snow in Vermont is as common as dirt, they said. We don't need pictures. Maybe some of you all feel that way with all the snow we've had. Willie said the photographs would be his gift to the world. See, it's so interesting how a lot of scientists see things differently. They look at things differently and they discover things that sometimes really, really help the way we live our lives. While other farmers sat by the fire or rode to town with horse and sleigh, Willie studied snowstorms. He stood at the shed door and held out a black tray to catch the flakes. When he found only jumbled, broken crystals, he brushed the tray clean with a turkey feather and held it out again. And here it says, this text box, the best snowstorm of his life occurred on Valentine's Day in 1928. Now it's 2015 now, so I'm estimating here, if I go back 100 years, that would be 1915. And so this was like, I'm estimating about 80 or so years ago. Okay, so that's like maybe when your great-grandparents were around, maybe. Okay, my grandfather was born in 1920. He would have been 8 years old then. So it said the best snowstorm of William Bentley's life occurred in Valentine's Day on 1928. He made over 100 photographs during the 2-day storm. He called the storm a gift from King Winter. And you have to remember, now we can take 100 pictures probably in a minute because we have digital cameras. Back then, remember the camera he had, it was a lot of work just to take one picture. And let's see if this will catch up. I'll go back here and I'll reload it. And I hope. Oh, okay. There we go. Thank goodness. I'm enjoying this story, this biography so much that I did not want it not to load up. He waited hours for just the right crystal and didn't notice the cold. If the shed were warm, the snow would melt. If he breathed on the black tray, the snow would melt. If he twitched a muscle as he held the snow crystal on the long wooden pick, the snowflake would break. He had to work fast or the snowflake would evaporate before he could slide it into place and take its picture. Some winters he was able to make only a few dozen good pictures. Some winters he made hundreds. Evaporate. You can see here it's a bold word. That's a text feature that means it must be a really important word.
Would evaporate before he could slide it into place.
And it's reading it for me. I thought it might give me kind of like on a Kindle, it might give me the definition. But if I use my schema or my background knowledge about evaporation from what I've learned in science, some of you may know this, what happens is that the snowflake was a solid, and eventually it would go to a liquid and then to a gas and evaporate, and he had to do this very quickly. And this text box says he learned that each snowflake begins as a tiny speck. As a speck, much too tiny to be seen. Little bits, molecules. That's when a group of atoms are together, and atoms are one of the smallest parts of matter, of water attached to the speck to form its branches. As the crystal grows, the branches come together and trap small quantities, that means numbers, of air. And this text box says, many things affect the way these crystals branches grow. A little more cold, a little less wind, or a bit more moisture will mean different shaped branches. Willie said that was why in all his pictures he had never found two snowflakes alike. And if you had watched my edu creation that I created during our last snow days, you can see that there are so many different changes that go on that are never repeated that affect why snowflakes are different. Willie so loved the beauty of nature, he took pictures in all seasons. That's so cool. In the summer, his nieces and nephews rubbed coat hangers with sticky, that's called a tongue twister, sticky pitch from spruce trees. Then Willie could use them to pick up spider webs jeweled with water drops and take their pictures. On fall nights, he would gently tie a grasshopper to a flower so he could find it in the morning and photograph the dew-covered insect. What a great, this is such a great biography about a scientist who loved his science. Wasn't just for him a job. He loved the earth, and he loved looking at the earth and the beauty of the earth. And that really is something that inspires me when I read this story. It's a lesson to me. Willie's nieces and nephews lived on one side of the farmhouse that Willie shared with his brother Charlie. Willie often played the piano as they sang and shared stories and games with them. But his snow crystal pictures were always his favorite. He gave copies away or sold them for a few cents. He made special pictures as gifts for birthdays. Kind of like you probably make art and give it away for birthdays to your parents or to your friends and stuff like that. This is something that he really treasured that he did, and he gave it away as gifts. He held evening slideshows on the lawns of his friends. Children and adults sat on the grass and watched while Willie projected his slides onto a sheet hung over a clothesline. This text box says many colleges and universities bought lantern slide copies of his photograph and added to their collections each year. Artists and designers use the photograph to inspire their own work. Inspire.
To inspire their own work.
Inspire is a really special word, and it means that when you do something that helps, that causes someone else to want to do it because they see how much happiness and joy that it brings to you, and they want to do that too, kind of like you're a role model, it inspires them. Such a cool word. He wrote about snow and published his pictures in magazines. He gave speeches about snow to faraway scholars. Scholars are people who are like, they're scientists in their field, and they do so much research in it that they know a lot. And when you get to that point, you become a scholar. And neighborhood skywatchers. "You are doing great work," said a professor from Wisconsin. The little farmer came to be known as the world's expert on snow, the Snowflake Man. But he never grew rich. He spent every penny on his pictures. I could say probably because he loved what he did. That's really cool when you get to that point where you grow up and what you do in your life is something that you really, really love, and that's what you put all of your heart and effort into. That's kind of cool. Willie said that there were treasures in snow. "I can't afford to miss a single snowstorm," he told a friend. "I never know when I will find some wonderful prize." Other scientists raised money so Willie could gather his best photographs in a book. When he was 66 years old, Willie's book, His Gift to the World, was published. Still, he was not ready to quit because he loved what he was doing. Less than a month after turning the first page on his book, Willie walked 6 miles home in a blizzard to make more pictures. He became ill, though, with pneumonia after the walk and died 2 weeks later. Even today, those who want to learn about snow crystals begin with Wilson Bentley's book, Snow Crystals. In 1926, he had spent $15,000 on his work and only received $4,000 from the sale of photographs and slides. Of course, he was happy, and sometimes you learn that happiness means more than money. A monument was built for Willie in the center of town. The girls and boys who had been his neighbors grew up and told their sons and daughters the story of the man who loved snow. 40 years after Wilson Bentley's death, children in his village worked to set up a museum in honor of the farmer scientist. And his book has taken the delicate snow crystals that once blew across Vermont, past mountains, over the earth. Neighbors and strangers have come to know of the icy wonders that land on their own mittens, thanks to Snowflake Bentley. And the plaque here on the picture says, Snowflake Bentley, Jericho's world-famous snowflake authority. For 50 years, Wilson A. Bentley, a simple farmer, developed his technique. That means kind of his method of doing things. Kind of like you might have a method for building Legos or for making a sandwich or for the way you write, or for a lot of things that you do. You just do it the way you do it. Well, that's what a technique is. So let me repeat that sentence so I understand what I'm reading. For 50 years, Wilson A. Bentley, a simple farmer, developed the technique of microphotography to reveal to the world the grandeur. The grandeur means kind of like how wonderful things are, and mystery of the snowflake, its universal hexagonal, hexagon, 6 sides, shape in its infinite number of lovely designs. And that's the end of our book. And I really appreciate you for listening to this. I have a couple questions for you. Think about what were the main ideas and details of this story? And also, why do you think, let's look at this question. Why do you think she wrote Snowflake Bentley? Why would you write about Snowflake Bentley? Why did she write a biography? Was she trying to inform, explain, entertain us? Anyway, if you write a note to Mr. Streshley or email me, I will definitely respond to you. If you'd like to tell me what you think of the story as far as its main idea and details, or why Jacqueline Briggs Martin here wrote this story, and I will make sure that when we get back to school, that I will make sure to have something special to give to you for taking the time to spend the effort to share with me your learning from this special story. And as you can see here, if you are interested in getting to this online anthology, it's right here. I used it off of the Snowflake Bentley as a Caldecott Award-winning piece of literature. It also happens to be featured in one of our anthologies that's used in 4th grade, or sometimes used in 4th grade for reading. So anyway, thanks everyone for listening to this, and Mr. S is going to hit this right here. Hopefully if you enjoyed listening to this, maybe you can make your own snag it and share it with people. Enjoy Friday, everyone, or if you're listening to this on Friday, and I hope you've had a good day or this weekend, and we all look forward to seeing you on Monday.